computer. Okay.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Monique Akassi, and welcome to the virtual hybrid Afro-Latino lecture film series here at West Liberty University, Tuesday, September 20th, 2022 at 12:00 p.m. in the Boyer Room. This lecture series today will be recorded. We have people joining us both virtually and in person. So I welcome all of you locally, nationally, and internationally today. And we will continue this series throughout the National Hispanic Heritage Month. Today, we will have our inaugural address, followed by the 22nd, we will have Professora Tia Javier from the Dominican Republic. Afro-Latino scholar will be presenting virtual as well. And followed by Dr. Clement A. Akassi on September 27th, renowned international Afro-Latino scholar as well by way of Madrid, Spain, and Perpignan, France, and Côte d'Ivoire and Cuba. And then on the 29th, we will have a premiere of film of Afro-Latino studies, and that was directed and written by the renowned Dr. Henry Louis Gates Jr. So that will be physically in person on the 29th of this month. So without further ado, I would like to bring up our dynamic, renowned president, Dr. W. Franklin Evans, president and CEO of West Liberty University, to send greetings.
Good afternoon. I want to officially bring greetings for Hispanic Heritage Month as it commences. This really is a perfect opportunity for this campus, for the state, even for the nation to pay tribute to Hispanic Americans, to those individuals here in the United States, for their accomplishments, for their victories, for their history, and for their culture. Most recently, I was educated on an assumption that I had held for many years. In fact, most people think that the use of the word Hispanic and Latino can be done interchangeably, thinking really that they are the same. However, there really is a difference between those two terms. I now know and I understand that the term Hispanic refers to language. It includes people who speak Spanish, or that Spanish is the traditional language of those individuals, whereas Latino is geographic. It refers to those people who are from countries in Latin America. So now I know that a person can be Hispanic, but also Latino, or someone could be Latino and Hispanic, or someone can be Hispanic and not Latino, or you can be Latino and not Hispanic. So I've learned that valuable lesson as we begin to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. But nonetheless, we honor and we observe National Hispanic Heritage Month. And over the next few weeks, and certainly the next 27, 28 days, I look forward to West Liberty University being immersed in Hispanic trivia, literature, guest speakers, good food, and an array of educational and fun activities. So best wishes for an amazing Hispanic Heritage Month. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. I'd like to introduce our speaker today, Dr. Monique Akassi. Dr. Akassi is a Special Assistant to the President for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Strategic Initiatives, as well as a full professor of English here at West Liberty University. He is an award-winning, transformative servant leader, entrepreneur, and manager within higher education. Dr. Akassi has over a decade of experience in diversity, equity, and inclusion, strategic planning and initiatives, academic affairs, student affairs, and fundraising. Serving as a lifelong educator, administrator, author, editor, researcher, curriculum designer, humanitarian, and public figure within higher education, Dr. Akassi has both authored and edited over 23 publications, including 7 books and 2 journals. To name a few, the Journal of Africana Composition and Rhetoric, an undergraduate journal of research and writing across the Caribbean. And without further ado, I give you Dr. Monique Akassi.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Annalise Murphy, one of our very own esteemed seniors here at West Liberty University, majoring in media and criminal justice. So be on the lookout for Annalise. Thank you, Annalise. And thank you again, our dynamic President Evans, for giving your greetings and your warm welcome. I thank you also, Ms. Maureen Zambito, our Director of Media, for being a part of this and making sure that this is archived for our rich history here at West Liberty. And Dr. Willard, our Dean, thank you so much for being here as well. And again, for so many people that are joining us locally, nationally, internationally, both synchronous and asynchronous, this presentation is again being recorded. So I present to you a case study on colorism in Afro-Latino and African-American cultures across the African diaspora. This ethnographic study and case study has been going on for approximately, going all the way back to my first trip with students to the Dominican Republic. It was a service learning project, and we wanted to focus in on a very delicate topic of colorism. And a lot of people recently have been talking more about colorism in Afro-Latino culture. And so that inspired today's presentation to resurrect it and to re-examine it, as well as recently finding out through Ancestry.com that I have a plethora, like many of us will find out through Ancestry.com, but I have Mexican roots, and I did not know that. So that's been an eye-opening experience for me as well, to identify as African-American and Afro-Latino now is a big game changer. So with this study, I just want to begin by sharing with the agenda. We'll go into the intro, we'll talk about the case study. We'll also look at some actual documentaries that were filmed over in the Dominican Republic, randomly approaching people from the Dominican Republic and asking them about colorism and how they identify. So we will share and look at some of those findings as well as their perspective on this delicate topic that we're still dealing with here in 2022. So to begin an introduction, according to National Hispanic Heritage Month's government's website, each year Americans observe National Hispanic Heritage Month from September 15th to October 15th by celebrating the histories, cultures, and contributions of American citizens whose ancestors came from Spain, Mexico, Caribbean, and Central and South America. Now, with the observation started actually going all the way back to 1968 as Hispanic Heritage Week under President Lyndon Johnson, it was expanded by President Ronald Reagan in 1988 to cover a 30-day period starting on September 15th and ending on October 15th. It was indeed enacted into law on August 17th, 1988, on the approval of Public Law 100-402. And so to continue from the site verbatim, the day of September 15th is significant because it is the anniversary of independence for Latin American countries, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, and in addition, Mexico and Chile celebrate their Independence Days on September 16th and September 18th, respectively. Also, Columbus Day, or Dia de la Raza, which is October 12th, falls within this 30-day period. So when we think about Latin America geographically, it is divided up into several regions. We're looking at North America, Central America, South America, and the Caribbean as well. But we don't get a chance again to talk a lot about Afro-Latino, Afro-Latinx culture and its significant role that it has played on a local, national, and international level. According to OHA, to the nonpartisan American think tank survey that was recently done, Latino adults showed that 1/4 of all US Latinos self-identify as Afro-Latinos, Afro-Caribbean, or of African descent with roots in Latin America. And that's approximately 5 to 6 million right here in our country. And the Pew Research Center also informed that only 18% of Afro-Latinos identified their race or one of their races as Black, and a higher group of Afro-Latinos identified as white alone or white in combination with another race. One of the controversial issues with this, and some of the Dominicans did not want to go online through the video to share, but it has been documented and starting to become more vocal that in some of these countries, people are encouraged not to identify as having any African roots. And if they identify, there would be consequences. And so there are many that choose not to because of those consequences. Even Dr. Henry Louis Gates Jr. Over at Harvard University, he has documented and studies show that even in Mexico, and we know in America, we have the 1-drop rule. And what is the 1-drop rule? If you have even some Black blood, if you will, in your DNA, then you're considered to be of African descent. And so Dr. Henry Louis Gates Jr. has contended that if that rule applied to Mexico, all Mexicans Black. So this 1-drop rule is very much so practiced here in the USA, but it's not practiced a lot in other parts of the world. But if it was, we would have more and more people that are coming out and identifying. The Pew Research Center informed that only 18% of the Afro-Latinos identified their race or one of their races as Black. And in 2015, Mexico allowed people to identify as Black or Afro-Mexican for the first time. So it took this long. 2015 wasn't that long ago. And during their survey, 1.4 million Mexicans self-identified as Black or African descent. So just imagine if we look at that again, if we take another survey in the next few years, because this is just the inaugural, that 2015, 1.4. But if we look at that again today, I'm pretty sure that number will rise significantly even more. And in Brazil, about half the population is of African descent. In Cuba, Black people make up 1/3 of that country's population. And in the Dominican Republic, 1/4 to nearly 90% of Dominicans are Black, even if they identify as Indio. So we also need to keep in mind that Brazil is the second largest country in this world with the highest population of people of African descent. Nigeria is #1. A few interesting facts before we go into the actual video coverage from the different people over in the Dominican Republic. Interesting facts, Latino, and as President had mentioned as well, some interesting facts in regards even with the language and the meaning of Latino and Hispanic. With Latino, Latino refers to people that are from or are descendants from Latin America. Not all Latinos speak Spanish. Some Latinos speak Portuguese and French. Even over in Africa, there is one country in Africa that was colonized by Spain, and their colonized language, their dominant language is Spanish, and that is Equatorial Guinea. So Hispanic refers to people who share a common language, as President Evans had mentioned earlier. And people who identify as Hispanic or Latino can be from any race or background. And some of us may not know this, but we have quite a few famous Afro-Latinos in this world. Can you all think of any off the top of your head that you could think of today? Any famous Afro-Latinos? Celebrities, scholars, authors? Yes, yes, quite a few. There are quite a few. Let's take a look and see. And this is coming from Oprah's site. 16 trailblazing Afro-Latinos that you need to know. You may recognize some of them. Let's take it from the top. Mariah Carey. Mariah Carey is Afro-Latino. Her father was Black in Venezuela. Yes. We have Cardi B. Cardi B, the famous Grammy-winning rapper, was raised in the Bronx by a Dominican father and Trinidadian mother. We have Francisco Lindor, baseball, MJ Rodriguez, an activist and recently Emmy-nominated Aussie actor, is a proud Afro-Latina. Harold Jerome, he's a famous Dominican-American actor and musician, and the first to actually win an Emmy for Best Lead Actor. We also have Tessa Thompson, believe it or not. She played in the famous For Color Girls, who have considered suicide when the rainbow wasn't enough. Her mother is of Mexican descent, and her father of Afro is from Panama, Afro-Panamanian. And then Rosie Perez, if you remember going all the way back to Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, Afro-Latino. And then also in White Men Can't Jump, Maxwell, believe it or not, the beautiful voice of Maxwell, the Puerto Rican and Haitian American artist. He too is considered and identifies as of Afro-Latino descent. Rosario Dawson, Laz Alonso, another actor, Zoe Saldana, Coleman Domingo, most known for playing Victor in Fear of the Walking Dead, is also, mother is Black and the father is from Guatemala and Belize. Soledad O'Brien, Gina Torres, Miguel, famous singer as well, raised by his Mexican and Black parents. And Elizabeth Acevedo, she is the National Book Award winning author of 2018, The Poet X, the Afro-Dominican poet and young adult novelist, also penned Clap When You Land and With the Fire of High. So indeed, we have quite a plethora of famous Afro-Latinos that we need to consider and to celebrate. And there are many, many more out there. I want to raise your attention before we go into the video on a very sensitive topic that has affected people of African descent globally. Okay, and that is colorism. Colorism can be defined, according to Webster, as prejudice or discrimination against individuals with a dark skin tone, typically among people of the same ethnic or racial group. Colorism within the Black community has been a serious emotional and psychological battle, which is also talked about extensively in post-traumatic slave syndrome as well by DeGrasse. So with colorism, and think back to your childhood experiences. When we think about colorism, how many of you, and those virtually I can't see, but how many of you have experienced or witnessed some shape, form, fashion of colorism, even as we look at this graph, in-group colorism, which basically this comes from, it can happen at work, school, public settings, family and friends, other and social settings, healthcare, criminal justice, but in-group colorism and out-group colorism. In-group colorism can come even from within your own group, within your own family, among your own friends. And out-group when we're going out externally and experiencing from others outside of our circles, right? So this can go all the way back. It has links going all the way back to slavery. And we know that all of this was made up, but if you were of lighter skin, you were in the house. And if you were of darker skin, then you were out in the fields. And even today, when children are born, is in the colonial imaginary of checking the baby's fingertips, checking the baby's ears. Why? Because we're trying to see how dark the child is. Now in Brazil had practiced a technique called, and they encouraged it, whitening out the race. And that's why you see a lot of mixtures going on over in Brazil. In America, especially during slavery in America, it was forbidden. But in Brazil, it was encouraged to try to whiten out as much as possible, but you can't whiten it out, it's there. And so we still deal with this today unconsciously and consciously. And over in the Dominican Republic, at one time, Haiti and the Dominican Republic was one island. And then they split off. If you go over to Haiti, if you ever have a chance to visit Haiti, you'll see that there are lots of statues, and even in the documentary that will play on the 29th by Dr. Henry Louis Gates Jr., there's a celebration of African roots over there, statues and things of that nature, and embracing the African roots in Haiti. And the colonized language that is spoken over there as well is an African spinoff, if you will. Just like in America, we have Ebonics. Out of the 6,900 languages, Ebonics is a language that went to court in 1979, the King versus Ann Arbor case, and it too is a language within English as well. So we have like French, Creole is a part of French, and English the same way with Ebonics. But over in the Dominican Republic, many of the Dominicans are encouraged, do not admit that you have Black roots. And it got so bad, even a few of my previous students from over in the Dominican Republic said that it got so bad that if some Dominicans were too dark, there were cases where they were being kidnapped and moved over to Haiti. Imagine that, because of colorism, the color of your skin. You're in your own country, but because you're darker, and you will tell them, no, I'm Dominican, I'm from the Dominican Republic. No, you're Haiti, you look Haitian, kidnapped, taken away from family and friends. That continues to go on today. And so there are many that are starting to vocally speak out about it. And how many are willing to risk the repercussions of being ostracized, alienated by admitting their roots? Even in Mexico, there are some in Mexico that are still saying, don't admit it. If you do, that's your own fault, because now you're going to be treated differently because you chose to add that Afro part to it. So it's a slippery slope, and it's a paradox of, do I abandon a part of my identity to be accepted by society and lose a part of myself, or do I embrace all and educate more to respect and identify the roots as well? So let's take a look at a few. When I went over there with the students, we were randomly, and keep in mind, this was very risky, what we were doing, very risky. Many scholars, there have been scholars, including W.E.B. Du Bois, that were forbidden to go to certain countries because of the research, and knowledge is power, and actually exposing things that have been done. So I'm going to share with you several of the videos, okay, that we had captured, and this was on a volunteer basis. Okay, let me go back. I hope that you can hear it. Thank you very much. Let me try to go back one more time.
In the Dominican Republic,
1 second. I think that something about the video is not coming.
and I like
Let me
that.
just go back and
Thank you.
make sure that I go back, because
Are
it
you-
sounds like there's another one going on.
Haitian?
1 second.
Haitian? Okay, beautiful. I'd like to,
And I
Haitian.
still hear-
Muy.
Okay,
And I like that, sister. Thank you very
all
much.
right.
Are you Dominican or Haitian?
Try
Haitian?
one more.
Okay, beautiful. I like the Haitian look. Muy cool. And I like that. Thank you. Well, are you Dominican or Haitian? Haitian?
Okay,
Okay,
so what
beautiful.
I'm
I
gonna
like
do, I'm gonna
Haitian look.
exit out of this entire one first. And see if
And I
I
like
can
that.
get it, because it
Thank
seems like
you.
it's
Thank you very
coming
much.
from another area. I'm not for sure where. Just exit out of all of these and try to start.
Like the Haitian look. Muy.
1 second, everyone.
And I like that. Thank you very
Okay, I'm
much.
gonna go back in.
Are you Dominican?
Here we go. Got it. All right, so here's the first one. And keep in mind, there are some language barriers with some could understand. This particular one, the mother and child. Second, I hope my Zoom people are still with me. Okay. Those who are on Zoom, if someone can just verbally let me know that you can still. Sorry about that. Okay, there we go. So here's the first one. This is mother and child. Looking at her, a person may automatically.
Dominican or Haitian? Okay, beautiful. I like the Haitian look.
So she's in the
Muy,
Dominican
muy cool. And I like that.
and
Thank-
she's with her daughter. I'm gonna play it one more time.
Dominican or Haitian? Okay, beautiful. I like the Haitian look. Muy cool. And I like that, sister. Thank you very much.
Now, so in this particular one, I was asking her, is she Dominican or Haitian? And keep in mind, my Spanish wasn't the greatest back in 2015. So she was saying that she was from
And I
Haiti.
like that, sister.
So there are some Haitians over in the Dominican Republic as well, but the issue that I was talking about earlier still continues to happen today as well regarding the complexity of colorism and the simple fact that some actually are even kidnapped and brought back over to Haiti, even if they're from the Dominican. Here's another one.
Wow, are you from Dominican or from Haiti? Dominican, are you Dominican?
Yes.
Oh, I'm African American.
Okay.
Do you say African Dominican or just Dominican?
Dominica.
No African?
Africa.
You African too? Hombre. Hombre. What is it? What is the jury? You made the jury?
Yes, I make the
Wow. Are you from Dominican or from Haiti?
Dominica.
Are you Dominican?
Yes.
Oh, I'm African American.
So with this particular one, he's Dominican too, as you can see. He could easily pass as Haitian,
No African.
but he says that he's from the Dominican Republic.
Okay.
He makes jewelry.
What is-
And one of the things they're encouraged not to say, I'm Afro-Dominican. They just, I'm Dominican. Here's another one. And I'm sorry if you can't hear it, but I am paraphrasing and reiterating for those who can't hear.
Con leche. Yes.
So your daddy is blanco and your mommy negro? You're linda. Yeah. So are you African Dominican?
Oh, no, I got wrong. I got that. Africa is the Spain.
Oh, okay.
Porque my name is Santorito Mendes Carvajal.
So no negro, just Dominican.
So as you can see again,
Uh-huh.
he doesn't want to be identified with the black, even though.
In America, we say African American or negro in America. for
Yeah,
us.
no,
Yeah. But it's muy guapo, muy linda. Yeah. Okay.
So
Con leche. Yes.
So your daddy is blanco and your mommy.
Dad is white.
You're
and
linda.
mom is black, but he does not want. And many are saying, some are even saying, oh, it's a choice, but he does not want to be identified in that manner. Here is another one. Now, this one is very proud of things going on. This was in 2015. This one, he was saying Obama #1, America #1. This one is a very interesting one. I have two more. She was one of our tour guides, but she really blows the whistle.
Almost everybody considers themselves black. You have a little part of black. You are going to consider yourself white. And if you have a little part of white, you are going to consider yourself as a white person. And to consider a person black in this country has been really
If they're really black, do they identify and say I'm black?
they say I'm black, but maybe the people are going to talk about me as a Asian. Yes, they will think that that person is an Asian, not a Dominican.
Okay, and then last question, do the Dominicans believe that they have African origins, like their ancestors originate from Africa?
Yes, but they usually want to emphasize the Spanish heritage. Almost always have the African heritage.
Why?
Yes. So they don't consider black.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Rosie.
That one is a powerful example of the colonial imaginary and the damage that can be done, because Rosie boldly admitted that even Rosie, she says she identifies as white, and you can see clearly that's a Black woman, Afro-Latino. And so the imaginary is big. It's big. And so you have people that are of color. And she said, even if you have a little bit of Black in you, people are saying to identify as white. And so because of this, this is a paradox that we are continuing to battle, not only with Afro-Latinos, but also among our own people of African descent right here in Africa, in America as well. And so with that being said, we definitely have to continue to talk about these conversations, and we need to, my PowerPoint just went away. We need to continue to talk about these conversations, and how do we create a safe space to talk about it where one doesn't have to feel as though they have to abandon their roots. W.E.B. Du Bois talks about that in his double consciousness theory. This theory, this dilemma of being African and American in one body, where you cannot obliterate one or the other, but how do you hybridize, as Homi Bhabha would say, where you can embrace both and it can become hybrid, where one looks, as Dr. King says, not by the color of one's skin, but by the content of one character. So this is an ongoing battle that's going on globally among the African diaspora. And how do we celebrate? How can we, even through the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, how can we be more inclusive? Okay. From the case study in the ethnographic studies, findings reveal, and even Rosie, our guide, shared that if only we could embrace more identities, right? Even during this National Hispanic Heritage Month, only a few people were reading, I didn't even know. I had no, Afro-Latino, I had no idea, right? So can we start embracing more identities and learn more, take an effort to learn more about one's roots and celebrate others, celebrate differences, celebrate through film and literature and so forth. And we have a ton more of different activities going on this month as well, even through Dr. Felipe Rojas and many more. And make an effort to be more inclusive and open to other cultures. We'll see, these are some of the ways through the findings through this case study that we can start bringing more awareness to these particular topics as well. I even had to recently with a friend from Mexico that said, oh, no, you're not Black. I said, I am Black. I'm African-American and non-Afro-Latino. I said, no, but your skin is like mine. I said, no, but the DNA says differently. So we also deal with past, but that's for another conversation. There are many people that are passing and just totally abandoning one's rich roots of African descent. But we want to, in 2022, we want to find a way to have it where we can start celebrating more. And Tia Javier will definitely be talking about that because this is the international decade for celebrating people of African descent. And she will be talking about that at our next lecture series in 2 days, actually, September 22nd. So we'll hear from her directly and her experiences in the Dominican as an Afro-Latino, but also through her studies as well and what we can do moving forward and collectively, even here at West Liberty University and beyond. So I thank each and every one of you. At this time, I'd like to open it up for questions and answers. I know we have some people virtually online as well. Let's see if I can get back to everybody online. And so do we have any questions online? And thank you. I see Provost is with us as well. I'm glad you all can see it now. Thank you for joining us, Provost and Mr. Glanville and Sabir and Nickerson and Panapucci and Cantley. You can post your questions in the chat and/or you can publicly speak up at any time, and those that are with us physically as well. Any questions, comments at this time? Any questions, comments? Anything, any aha moments? Any experiences I shared with you? Just imagine finding out, you think you know your identity, and then you find out that you have, for me, for instance, for me, Mexican roots. And I'm like, okay, how did that happen? And about 12 others. But how many of you have, even with the topic of colorism, would anybody like to share? And it doesn't just happen in the African-American and Afro-Latino communities. I've witnessed it in Western culture as well. Anyone like to share any experiences with colorism, or even just the whole idea of image and looking through the Eurocentric gaze that oneself to use as a measuring stick in regards to identity? Yes, Ms. Nandito.
Well, I find it always fascinating to learn about people's heritage and differences. But I know that, see, I'm Irish German roots, and I married into a Sicilian family. And I mean, at first I was taken back because I thought, gosh, I mean, my mother-in-law, no, she would tell me everybody's background, what city, you're talking about the city in Italy, the Rome, the person is like this. And I mean, they were very interested in all that. And at first I thought, well, is that nice? I like it. You know, you learn a lot. And I mean, I know they even told me that the Moors came into Sicily, you know, and I mean, you know, it was interesting.
Yes.
So I enjoyed it.
Absolutely. And I thank you for sharing that and discovering that through your nana, through your mother-in-law. How did that make you feel?
Well, like I said, at first, Irish German, that was more reserved. I thought, are we supposed to talk about people's backgrounds? Because believe me, she could ever. But I enjoyed it. Yeah, then I started, like I knew the Sicilian in this area and all their background. It was interesting.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. And you know, it's in 2022, we want to celebrate and cultivate cross-cultural connections, celebrate our differences, you know. Even during the trip over there to the DR with the students, it started raining. And some of you have heard of the Dominican blowout. This is the Dominican blowout with the hair, because a lot of Dominicans have big curly hair, like a lot of people of African descent. But with the Dominican blowout, it's a lot of heat, intense heat, and it makes it bone straight, straighter than, than you can imagine. But it started raining and my hair started swelling. And some of the Dominican students started laughing. That was my first experience, and I tell you, it was hurtful. Even as a professor, not laughing like in a loving way, but laughing like, oh my God, look at that thing. What in the world and I'm thinking, are we suffering from cultural amnesia? Because your hair does the same exact thing, but I'm being ridiculed. And, that was a wake-up call for me. That, and then hearing the people, and of course, they embrace their roots, just like you were saying, Ms. Ambito, about the proud, rich heritage. But if you're conditioned, not all, but many, if you're conditioned to obliterate a certain part of your background, and then only for it to resurrect here in 2022 now, where we're starting to embrace and celebrate more, it's a very vulnerable position to be. And sometimes with that being said, we need, all of us can play a critical role in embracing and celebrating, even with this National Hispanic Heritage Month. It's okay. I celebrate you. I see you. Even just that simple, I see you, can go a long way. And I don't know, but I want to, can go a long way. And everybody's culture matters. Yes. Any others? Any others?
I just want to say that I think colorism can extend even beyond skin characteristics of a person. And just a personal note, I'm really happy that in my family, with all the different gradients, color gradients that exist in my immediate family, that my parents really helped us to focus on caring, loving everyone, and not lauding someone higher than another.
Exactly. That's an excellent point, Dr. Willard, that we definitely will hear more about when Dr. Clement Akassi presents as well on the 27th from Howard University. This irony where we're starting to associate color with one's economic background status. And you cannot, but it's being done a lot. Even billion-dollar Oprah Winfrey has been accused and stereotyped and prejudged because of the color of her skin. But it's a slippery slope when one starts to associate the color of your skin with you're poor. Black equals poor. No matter if you're $1 billion, if you have your doctorate degree, Black is poor. Obama, first president of the USA, poor. That's dangerous, but that's our reality when we're starting to tap into colorism associated with one's financial background, right? And we saw a lot of this even going over during the transatlantic slave trade. There were kings and queens. It didn't matter what your background was. And over in Africa, if you go right now, it's very big into status. For instance, professors over there, when I went over there, professors are not supposed to drive. You have a driver, you have people to clean your house, you have students to carry your books and your briefcase to the class. And when you come into the classroom, people stand up and the students don't sit down until the professor sits down. So it's very much into status. But so it's a slippery slope when we go into other parts of the world where I don't care what status you had. You could have come from a royal family, but because of your color of your skin, you're here. And that's what we need to start examining with what Derrida calls deconstructing and reconstructing. And only we have the power to do this today. But that's continued to happen over in Afro among Afro-Latinos and African Americans and any one of the African diaspora as well. But great point made about that, Dr. Wood. Yes. Any others? Any others virtually? Virtually, can everyone hear me? Would anybody, any comments, questions? Any comments, questions? Yes, Diane Nickerson. Yes, thank you so much for joining us. Oh, I thought your hand was raised. Never mind. Okay, any others? Okay, well, I thank each and every one of you for joining us today. I hope that you all were able to take away some things. I know that each and every one of you have contributed even from your support and your questions and comments. And we want to continue these healthy conversations throughout this month as well and beyond. So thank you, everyone, and please join us again. In 2 days, we will hear a keynote from Professora Tia Javier, Afro-Latino scholar, and one from the Dominican Republic as well. So thank you all, and I'm going to end with a famous Afro-Latino singer. She is considered queen of a lot of the salsa dances and things of that nature. If you don't know her, definitely look her up, Cecilia Cruz. Thanks, everybody, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Are you, let me go.